Welcome Algebra 1 students to another Regents review video. This is the January 2015 Algebra 1 Common Core Regents examination. Once again, June 2015. These are going to be the solutions to parts 2 through 4. These are the open-ended response questions for this examination, and they are a little bit longer, so this video will take a little bit of more time, of my time and your time. So, without further ado, let's talk about a few things before we begin, and then we will get started. If you are here to copy my answers and cheat, for lack of better terms, please refrain from doing so, because you actually need to do the problems to get better at math. Also, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure that you visit my website at www.nysmathregionsprep.com, where you can find a lot more math content for Algebra 1 and beyond. So, one more thing, I use the TI Inspire CX Graphing Calculator, and it will be used a lot in Algebra 1 videos, so make sure that you have some sort of calculator, but if you have this one, it's perfect, because then you can follow along with me at all times. Without further ado, let's get started on the Part 2s. The Part 2s are fairly easy, because they are Part 2 questions, so they're only worth 2 points. And let's just do it. Here we go. Miss Fox asked her class, is the sum of 4.2, I should say, and radical 2 rational or irrational? Patrick answered that the sum would be irrational. State whether Patrick is correct or incorrect, and then justify your reasoning. Well, 4.2 is a rational number, okay? So 4.2, I'm going to point to this, and I'm going to say it's a rational number. And the reason why is because it terminates. Now, radical 2 is an irrational number because it is non-terminating, meaning it never ends, and it's non-repeating, meaning that it doesn't repeat anywhere. And this is approximately, if you were to type this into your calculator, this is approximately equal to 5.61421356237, and of course, this number is irrational. So, is Patrick correct? Of course he is. He's a smart guy. So, we're going to say Patrick is correct because the sum of an irrational number and a rational number results in an irrational number. Now, what's nice is it says justify your answer. We actually did that from the beginning, which is all this stuff up here. So that would actually be considered a justification. So this is just your answer explanation. So Patrick is correct because the sum of an irrational number and a rational number results in an irrational number. Moving on to question 25. The school newspaper surveyed the student body of an article about club membership. The table below shows the number of students in each grade level who belong to one or more clubs. If there are 180 students in the 9th grade, what percentage of 9th graders belong to more than one club? So more than one club, you need to know that more than one club is 2 clubs or 3 or more clubs. Now, of these people surveyed, there's 90, 33, and 12. Well, that's a total of how many people? Well, let's see. If I go here, 90 plus 33 plus 12. There are a total of 135 people who were surveyed in this section, but there are 180 9th grade students. Now, of these 135 people who participated, there are 45 people who belong to more than one club just based off of this survey. So, what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up either A proportion, or B, just a simple ratio. If you were to set up a proportion, this is what it would look like. You have 45 students who participate in 2 clubs or more. all over 180 people. That's the amount of people who were in the ninth grade. And set that equal to x over 100. X is a percent. Now we're going to cross multiply. So we get 4,500 is equal to 180x. Okay. We're going to divide by 180 on both sides. Then you get x is equal to 25. Okay. So that's actually your percent. That's one way. I'm going to show you another way as well. So the other way is you just basically take 45 over 180, and that's going to give you 0.25, which is the same thing as 25%. Okay? And your answer, if you want to just put it in a sentence, you just could say that 25% of ninth grade students belong to more than one club. And that would be your answer for question number 26. All right, moving on. 27. A function is shown in the table below. If included in the table, which ordered pair, -4, 1, or 1, 4, would result in a relation that is no longer a function? Explain your answer. So if you look here, your x values are -4, -1, 0, and 3. So if you're looking at these points, which one would result in a relation that's no longer a function? Of course, that would be -4, 1. So your answer is going to be -4, 1, because the x value of -4 would repeat in a function for every value of x. There can be one and only one value of f of x. X values can't repeat in a function, as it would fail the vertical line test. Now look, of course, you don't need to explain all of that. You could pick and choose what you want to include, but I would definitely state that the first sentence is kind of important. I would definitely state the first sentence. And then you could say that, you could state the last sentence if you want to. The middle sentence is really a good explanation. If you want to include that, that's fine, but any one of these answers would be acceptable. You could pick any one of those sentences, and that would be fine. All right, moving on to question 28. Subtract 5x squared plus 2x minus 11 from 3x squared plus 8x minus 7. Then it says express the result as a trinomial. So I hope that your algebra teacher drilled this into your head. Whatever comes after the word from goes first. So we have 3x squared plus 8x minus 7 minus, in parentheses, 5x squared plus 2x minus 11. And we draw a line. So that negative, you're just going to distribute these. And then we get 3x squared plus 8x minus 7 minus 5x squared minus 2x plus 11. So now we're just going to draw our line and solve. So we get -2x squared plus 6x plus 4. And that's it. That's it simplified as it's going to get. So that is your answer, 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. All right, moving on to 29. Solve the equation 4x squared minus 12x equals 7 algebraically for x. So, okay, I have a feeling what we're going to do. We are going to be using the quadratic formula because this cannot be factored easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to the side. And I'm going to state my A, my B, and my C. My A is 4, my B is negative 12, my C is negative 7. So, using the formula, x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared, minus 4ac, all over 2a. We're going to go ahead and solve it. So we get x is equal to negative 12 plus minus the square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 7, all over 2 times 4. Keep on going. So we get x is equal to positive 12 plus minus the square root of 144 plus 112 all over 8. Okay? So now we get x is equal to 12 plus minus radical 256 all over 8. Well, the square root of 256 is equal to 16. So we get x is equal to 12 plus minus 16 all over 8. Now, you see how there's a plus minus right here? That means that there are actually two solutions to this system. Or to this equation, I should say. We could state that x is equal to 12 plus 16. X is equal to 12 plus 16 all over 8. And then we could state that x is equal to 12 minus 16 all over 8. So what we get is we get 12 is equal to, what is that equal to? 28 over 8. And then we get x is equal to negative 4 over 8. So your values of x is equal to, now this could be reduced to 7 halves. And negative 4 over 8 could be reduced to negative 1 half. So those are your answers. All right, that's going to be negative 1 half and 7 halves. I'm going to move that up, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Actually, you know what? No, that's good right there. All right, and that's basically how you do that question. Make sure you use the quadratic formula correctly, and you should be okay for that question. Now, could you do it by completing the square? I mean, you could, but you have to divide by 4 to get rid of that 4 value in the front for a. But I personally think that the quadratic formula, even though it is long, the quadratic formula is the easiest way. Now, I want to show you how you could check yourself in the calculator. So if you go to your calculator page, and you actually go ahead and type in your, well, if you go to your calculator page, and you go to menu, then you go to algebra, go to polynomial tools, and then if you click right here, real roots of polynomial, and if you actually type in 4x squared minus 12x minus 7, and then you type in comma x, look at what it does for you. It tells you the solutions. So you cannot get this wrong because you have your calculator to your advantage. And that's how you use the poly root key on the calculator. Pretty cool, right? All right, so that's done. Moving on to question 30. Graph the following function on the set of axes below. First and foremost, I am going to go right to my graphing calculator and graph it. So go to your graph, go to your little button next to your catalog, and then click on the one with the 4 windows here. That is your piecewise function. Now I'm going to click the absolute value of x, and then I'm going to type in -3, control equal is less than or equal to x, which is less than 1. Those two negatives should not be there. Okay, and then I'm going to graph the number 4, and then I'm going to graph from 1 to 8. Okay, and we get this piecewise function. Now remember that there is a dot or a hole right here because 1 is not included, but it is included up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our graph, and I'm going to graph this very slowly. Okay, let me zoom in 200%. There we go, 200%. So I'm going to draw a little circle here, and this is my piecewise function. So this right here is the absolute value function, and then this over here is your line, your horizontal line. So all that you're going to do now is you're just going to connect these points. Okay? Oops. Just like this. Okie dokies. So now we have this, right? Now we have this. I am now going to label this as f of x is equal to the piecewise squiggly line graph, whatever that is. Negative 3 is less than or equal to x. Oops. Negative 3 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 1. And we get 4. 1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to the number 8. So, is that all they wanted? Graph the following function on the set of axes below. Is that it? There's no follow-up question? That's it? Nice. That's a 2-point question. Yeah, cool. All right, 31. So, a gardener is planting 2 types of trees. Type A is 3 feet tall and grows at a rate of 15 inches per year. And type B is 4 feet tall and grows at a rate of 10 inches per year. Algebraically determine how many years it will take for these trees to be the same height. So what you have to know is, well, how could you express these? Well, type A is 3 feet tall and grows at a rate of 15 inches per year. So that is y is equal to 15 inches per year plus the 3 feet. Now, be so incredibly careful. It says 3 feet. How many inches are in 1 foot? Well, there's 12 inches in 1 foot. Therefore, there are 36 inches in 3 feet. Because if you just take 3 feet and multiply it by 12, you get 36 inches. So it's 15x plus 36. Same thing over here. 4 feet. There are 48 inches in 4 feet. So y is equal to 10 inches per year. So it's 10x plus 48. We're now going to set these equal to each other. So we get 15x plus 36 is equal to 10x plus 48. That was the only hard part about this question, is just to convert things. So we're going to now subtract the 10x. You get 5x plus 36 equals 48. Subtract the 36 on both sides. You get 5x equals 12, then divide by 5 on both sides. So we get x is equal to 12 over 5. Now, it's saying determine exactly how many years. Well, you could either do one of the following. It says exactly how many years. So if you do 12 divided by 5 with a decimal point, that's 2.4 years. So you could say in your answer, you could say it will take exactly 2.4 years for the trees to be the same height. Now, if you wrote x as a mixed number, such as 12 and 2 over 5, any of those answers would be perfectly acceptable, as well as 2.4. So if you wrote 12 over 5, 2 and 2/5, or 2.4, any of those answers will be perfectly acceptable on your Regents exam. Okay, 32. Here we go. Write an exponential equation for the graph below. Explain how you determined the equation. So here's what you could do. You could either you could either input your coordinates in your graphing calculator, which I think that is probably the best way to do it, most likely. So if you were to input these points right here, right? 4, 4. If you graph all these points, this is the point 2, 1. This is the point 3, 2. This is the point 4, 4. And this is the point 5, 8. If you actually input those values into your calculator, of course, you could generate the exponential equation. But if they say explain, they really want an algebraic way to determine this. So the best way to do this is like this. If you were to actually take a point, in this case is like 2, 1. If you take the point 2, 1, I hope that you know by now that these are all x values and these are all y values. And if you actually take another point, which is, let's just say 3, 2, this is your x value, this is your y value. So also you should know that the standard form the standard form of this exponential equation, or of an exponential, is y is equal to a times b raised to the x power. So if we actually take, watch this, if we take this coordinate right here, if we really wanted to, if we take this coordinate right there, and we plug it in, we get 1 is equal to a times b squared, right? Now, if you take the same process and you do it again, such as like y is equal to a times b raised to the x, if you take these same set of points and you plug it in, we get 2 is equal to a times b raised to the third power. Now, where am I going with this? So, if you take, well, look at this for a second. 1 is equal to a times b squared. So, if you actually take this and you take this and you somehow set them equal to each other, we could solve for the values of a and b. So if we actually combine these or set them equal to each other, what we get here is we get 2a times b squared is equal to ab to the third. Let me explain why. Because the ab to the third is right here. In order to make this to be the same as this, we need to move the 2 up here and double this. Because this has a 1, this has a 2, we need to double this in order to make it equal to this. And I hope that makes sense to you. It is a little hard to explain, but that's what's happening here. So I'm then going to divide by the letter a. Watch this. The a's cancel. Fantastic. So we get 2b squared is equal to b to the third. I'm going to then divide by b squared on both sides. You get b is equal to the number 2. Now, if we take b is equal to the number 2, and we take, let's just say 1 equals ab squared, watch what happens. If you take 1 equals ab squared, and b is 2, you get 1 is equal to a times 4. Divide by 4 on both sides, you get a is equal to 1/4. So now we have our values. So your equation is actually going to be y is equal to 1/4 times 2 raised to the x power. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your exponential equation. All right, and that's basically how you do that question. Is it confusing? Absolutely it is, but this is how you do it. Now, if you ever want to check yourself, by all means, graph the points in the calculator, put them in listen spreadsheets, get a equation, and you're going to be fine. All right, now it says explain how you determined the equation. Do I want to explain that? Well, I mean, this is a justification. I mean, explain. I don't know if they want it in words. They probably do. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure that this is enough work for a part 2 question. I'm gonna check my answer key real quick. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, this is your explanation. So if you did it like this, that's perfectly fine. If you use the graphing calculator, however, you have to actually explain what you did. You can't just say, I use a graphing calculator. No. You need to list the numbers. You need to indicate your initial value. You need to indicate your rate of growth and everything else. That's how you explain it. But this is a perfect way to just leave your answer as that. You don't need to explain it because that is actually your explanation. All right, moving on to question 33. Is this a part 3 question? Yes, it is. And I don't know why that is covered up. Okay. So part 3 says, Jacob and Zachary go to the movie theater to purchase refreshments for their friends. Jacob spends a total of $18.25 on 2 bags of popcorn and 3 drinks. Zachary spends a total of $27.50 for 4 bags of popcorn and 2 drinks. Write a system of equations that can be used to find the price of 1 bag of popcorn and the price of 1 drink. So, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let P equal popcorn. And I'm going to let D equal drinks. And let's go ahead and write the equation. Here's Jacob's equation, and here is Zachary's equation. So Jacob's equation is, well, Jacob spent spent $18.25. So we know it's going to be equal to $18.25. He bought 2 bags of popcorn, so 2P plus 3D. Okay? And Zachary spends a total of $27.50, and he buys 4 bags of popcorn and 2 drinks. Write a systems of equations. You are done. So these are your 2 systems of equations. Pretty simple so far. Then it says use these equations, determine and state the price of a bag of popcorn and the price of a drink to the nearest cent. So what we got to do is we have to actually solve this. So let me just rewrite these. 2P plus 3D equals 1825. And 4P plus 2D equals 2750. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for D first. Now, in order to solve for D, I'm going to multiply the top by -2. Remember, if you're solving for D, you got to cancel out the p-values. So I'm going to distribute that -2. So we get -4P minus 60 is equal to -$36.50. And then we get 4P plus 2D is equal to $27.50. Those 4P's cancel. We get -4D is equal to -$9. Divide by the -4 on both sides, and you get D is equal to $2.25. So that is the amount of money for one drink. Now it's easy. Now that we have our D value, you could actually just plug it back into one of these and just find the value of P. So now let's solve for P. Price of popcorn. So I'm going to use the equation 2P plus 3D is equal to $18.25. So we get 2P plus 3 times $2.25 is equal to $18.25. So 3 times 2.25, well, that is just going to be, let's see, 2P, and we move this over, we get $11.50 by moving this over to that side. Dividing by 2 on both sides, you get P is equal to $5.75. Yep, that sounds reasonable at a movie theater. $5.75 for popcorn? Oh, yes. Okay. So now you can just write on the side if you really wanted to, just to be very specific. You could say that popcorn is equal to $5.75, and the drink is equal to $2.25. And that is it. Pretty simple stuff. I'm trying to move it up here. See if that works. Ah, fantastic. Move it right up there. There we go. Okay, so that's the price of popcorn and the price of one drink. Moving along, number 34. Oh, these questions are going to take forever. Okay, whatever. 34, the graph of an inequality is shown below. Write the inequality represented by the graph. So first and foremost, we got to analyze this. The slope, it looks like it's going up 2 to the right 1. So the slope is 2. Your y-intercept is 0, -3. And it is a solid line shaded above. So that tells us a lot of things. We know that this inequality is represented by y is greater than or equal to, because it is greater than because it's shaded above, and there's an equal sign because it's solid. So y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 3. That is the inequality that is represented by the graph. On the same set of axes, graph the inequality x plus 2y is less than 4. If you didn't copy this down, copy it down right now. I'm going to erase it right now. Here we go. And erasing. So I'm going to now graph x plus 2y is less than 4. Problem is I want to put this in y equals form. So I'm going to subtract the x on both sides. You get 2y is less than negative x plus 4. And now I'm going to divide everything by 2. So you get y is less than negative 1/2 x plus 2. So I'm now going to graph that on my set of axes. So go to positive 2. Go down 1 to the right 2. Down 1 to the right. Oops. Down 1 to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2. And then you go up 1 to the left 2. Up 1 to the left 2. And now all you do here is you now draw a dotted line. Remember, it's a dotted line because it is less than. And you just shade below because it is less than. And of course, you label. That's y is less than negative 1/2 x plus 2. Pretty simple stuff so far, right? Okay, now there's a follow-up question. The two inequalities graphed on the set of axes form a system. Oscar thinks that the point 2, 1 is the solution, or is in the solution set for the inequalities. Determine and state whether you agree with Oscar. Explain your reasoning. So this is a common misconception that people have. They think that this is the solution set. That is not the solution set. That's the point 2, 1 that Oscar believes that it is a solution. It's not. Why is it not? Because it lies on the dotted line. Any point that lies on the dotted line is not considered to be included in the solution set. So that means that Oscar is wrong. Because the point 2, 1 does not satisfy the inequality of x plus 2y is less than 4. So it cannot be a solution. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the answer to part C. All right, moving on. 25. A nutritionist collected information about different brands of beef hot dogs. She made a table showing the number of calories and the amount of sodium in each hot dog. Write the correlation coefficient for the line of best fit. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. So first and foremost, go right to your calculator and start inputting these values. Here we go. We're going to go to our graphing calculator. I'm going to open up a list in spreadsheets. I'm going to say calories per beef. Oh, shoot, I can't go that far. So I'll just type in calories, and I'm going to type in milligrams of sodium or salt, because sodium and salt are the same thing. Now I'm going to go ahead and input these values. I hope that you are doing it with me right now. 186, 181, or maybe you did it already. 176, 149. So all these values are just being typed in. What we're going to do with these values is we're going to analyze these values by typing it into a linear regression generator in our calculator. You could skip ahead if you want to. This is a little boring. I know, I get it. We're almost done with the video, though, so it's okay. We're good. 487, 370, and 322. Okay, so I just inputted all these values. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our calculator. So Control Doc, add a calculator. Menu, statistics, stack calculations. I'm going to go to linear regression mx plus b. You could use a plus bx. I don't really care. I use mx plus b just because it is a common linear regression that we say y equals mx plus b. Your x list is your calories. Your y list is the milligrams of sodium. Click OK. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to actually write, not all of this, but you need to write selected values. So like I would write the title, I would then write M and B, and then I would write R. You don't need R squared, you don't need recid, and you don't need regression equation. We already know what that is. So up here to the left, I'm actually going to write down linear regression. All right. So that's M is equal to 4.588. B is equal to negative 346.602. Now, it's perfectly okay if you round to 3 significant places after the decimal. That's perfectly fine. I think that 3 is enough because they're asking for like hundredths. So that's perfectly fine. We just need to round to the 3 decimal places. Okay? Now it says write the correlation coefficient of the of best fit. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. So correlation coefficient, remember, is your R value. So that's going to be R is equal to 0.94 based off of the value that I have up here. So that's why it is going to be 0.94. Now, do you think that they're going to ask me a question, a follow-up question? What does that mean? Oh, of course they do. Of course they do. Explain what the correlation coefficient suggests in the context of this problem. Now, you need to remember some important facts about correlation coefficient. So I would write these down if you don't have these already. Remember, -1 is less than or equal to R, which is less than or equal to 1. The -1 represents a perfect negative correlation. When I say perfect, I mean a straight line. So that's what that means. A +1 represents a perfect positive correlation. So if they're asking you, explain what the correlation coefficient means in the context of this problem, I am going to write the correlation coefficient suggests that there is a very strong, because it is pretty darn close to 1. It is a very strong positive relationship, because it is a positive number. It's 0.94, so it's a positive slope. Positive relationship between the number of calories per beef hot dog. Do I have beef hot dogs? I don't even know. I haven't had a hot dog in years. Calories per beef hot dog and the milligrams of sodium in the beef hot dog. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you explain that answer. Pretty simple stuff. So just make sure you know what the correlation coefficient is in the context of the problem. All right, and that is it for number 35. Moving on to 36. All right, given the function f of x is equal to -x squared plus 8x plus 9, state whether the vertex represents a maximum or minimum point for the function. Explain your answer. You honestly do not even have to graph this. I'll tell you why. That right there. If you know that the quadratic, if it has a negative leading coefficient, it is the curve is downward. It's shaped downward. So we're going to say that the vertex represents a maximum point, because the leading coefficient is negative. And remember, when it's negative, your parabola looks like this. If I were to graph it on a set of axes, remember that the parabola will look like this, and this is your vertex up here. That would be considered a maximum. Now, of course, you could draw a picture on your Regents. They would love for you to draw a picture on your exam, so you could draw that if you really wanted to. Now it says, rewrite f of x in vertex form by completing the square. So they tell you what to use. Fantastic. So I'm going to say f of x is equal to -x squared plus 8x plus 9. But we have one slight problem, ladies and gentlemen. That a value is -1. So what we have to do first is actually factor out a -1. And then we're left with x squared minus 8x minus 9. We change the signs in the parenthesis. And we're going to set this equal to 0. Now, only focusing on what's inside of those parentheses, we get x squared minus 8x plus something is equal to, now I'm going to actually add the 9 on both sides, and we get 9 plus something. Okay? And this is all equal 0. So from here, we take half the middle, same process, we take half the middle and square it. So we have b divided by 2 squared, that is equal to -8 divided by 2 squared. -8 divided by 2 is -4. -4 squared is 16. So 16 goes to the left and the right. Now we could factor this by what adds to negative 8 and multiplies to give you positive 16. That is going to be x minus 4, and that is equal to 25. Okay? Now we go ahead and group these together. So we get x minus 4 squared is equal to 25. Now, the very last thing that we have to do, remember, is that the negative 1 is still out here. So what we need to do is we actually need to put it back in. So we take the negative 1, we plug it back in. So now we get f of x is equal to negative times x minus 4 squared is equal to negative 25. Now, we can't have two equal signs. It just doesn't make any sense. So we're going to move the 25 over to the left-hand side, and now we're done. F of x in vertex form is negative parenthesis x minus 4 squared plus 25. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you write f of x in vertex form by completing the square. And that's about it. All right. The final question of this exam. Final question. Here we go. New Clarendon Park is undergoing renovations to its gardens. One garden that was originally a square is being adjusted so that one side is double in length, while the other side is decreased by 3 meters. The new rectangular garden will have an area that is 25% more than the original square garden. Write an equation that could be used to determine the length of a side of the original garden. So what I want to do is I want to draw some pictures. I like drawing pictures because I'm a visual person. So the area of the old garden, all right? The old garden, which was a square, which is just x, 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 and x, because all sides in a square are congruent. So a is equal to x squared. Remember that area is equal to length times width. So x times x is x squared. That's where I'm getting that area from. Now, all of a sudden, they want to make, I don't know, I guess a rectangle. Something like that. And the new garden, the lengths are doubled, so that's 2x. And this is now subtracting by 3, so x minus 3. So the area is equal to 2x times x minus 3. That's your length times width. So the area is equal to 1.25 x squared. If you I'm sorry. The area is equal to 1.25 squared because it's 25% more than the original square garden. So what I did personally is I figured out the area based on its measurements, and this is the area based on the original square. So there's actually two area formulas for this. Now, it's saying write an equation that could be used to determine the length of the side of the original square garden. Ladies and gentlemen, we got it. These are equal. That's important. So now I just take 1.25x squared and set it equal to 2x times x minus 3. We are done with that part. That is your equation that we need to get this question right. Now, it says explain how your equation models this situation. So we are going to say in our answer, we're going to say that the length of the square is doubled. All right, so the length of the square is doubled. The width is reduced by 3, and the area of the square is increased by 25%. And that is your answer. Then it says determine the area in square meters of the new rectangular garden. So we're just going to take the equation that we just wrote before, which is 1.25x squared, and set it equal to 2x times x minus 3. We are going to distribute. So we get 1.25x squared is equal to 2x squared minus 6x. I am then going to subtract 1.25x squared on both sides. Not too shabby. So now we get 0.75x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. Now what's nice about this is you can actually factor out an x easily. You could take out an x. Or you could actually, you know what probably will be easier? You can move the negative 6x over. Watch what happens. If I move the negative 6x over, I get 0.75x squared is equal to 6x, right? We're trying to solve for x. So divide on both sides by 0.75. 0.75. You then get x squared is equal to 8x, right? Now, if you divide both sides by x, look at how easy this is. X's cancel, and one of these x's cancel, so you actually get x is equal to 8. So now the final part says determine the area. Well, the area of the new rectangle, or the new garden, is equal to 2x times x minus 3. So now we're just going to take 8 and plug it in for x. So we get 2 times 8 times 8 minus 3. 8 times 2 is 16 times 5, which is 80. So the area of the new rectangle is 80 meters squared. And ladies and gentlemen, you are officially done with that question. All right, so I hope that this helped a lot. Make sure that you visit my website at www.nysmathreadersprep.com for much more math content in Algebra 1 and all future mathematical subjects for the Regents exam. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, and I hope to see you soon.